Dude, God damn it, I hate these fucking people. Why? Why? Why do they have to act like that? Oh, they're gonna do goddamn mind Mandarin. The flock issue isn't even some fucking idiot. This isn't even political. It's like, yes, it is, dude. They're stalking you. This dude, this dude.
The inaugural season of the Indy Racing League in 1996 is incredibly bizarre for a wide-ranging set of reasons. From a tie in the driver standings resulting in two separate drivers being crowned champion, to the season only having 3 races spread from January to May, it was a truly befuddling year. Many race fans such as myself, however, are infatuated by the pure weirdness of this season. One of the parts that I've always found interesting, the inaugural season
Holy fucking shit, dude. Yo, where's that new follower, dude? They fucking messaged and said they're a new follower. Where they at? Jitta. You want tofu, dude? What is this? You fucking turn on. It's turning. Dun, 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 dun. Oh. Mm. Mm. Huh? Well, she's just chilling there. Why the fuck did they not change my fucking stream name? 可 Cthulhu. Dude, stop. Dippy. Dip. Quit. Quit pouting. He's pouting. Checking in was Chunk Yogurt's anti-MAGA.
They're two different worlds. It's fascinating to see. It's amazing to see.
Which base? The Democratic Party base or the Republican Party base? Which one do you think is more opposed right now to war with Iran? Which one?
The left. It's not even close.
It's not even close. Exactly. That's the point. And so
No,
if you are going to build,
if
you're going to build a grassroots people-powered movement with bodies in the streets to oppose war, where do you need to go for those numbers? The left, because they're already there with you. And by the way, the MAGA base, the minute that Trump says we're in a war with Iran, they are going to overwhelmingly back him because they have already. Every single
you have
time.
The numbers already. So
yeah,
I'm so sorry that I have to do this. I really don't mean to be petty. But I have to check in on Cenk Uyghur's anti-war coalition with MAGA to see how that's going, because if you'll all recall, he made some really, really bold claims about MAGA and whether or not they'd follow Trump into a war with Iran. And just to refresh your memory, right after the election, he tweeted, "I've been trying to figure out why I'm more optimistic now than I was before the election, even though I was so against the guy who won. I know now, MAGA is not my mortal enemy, and neither is the extreme left. My mortal enemy is the establishment, and they have been defeated." Now, if you were under the impression that he was calling Trump anti-establishment, you'd be reasonable to think that based on his wording, but apparently his optimism didn't stem from Trump himself, rather from Trump's base, who elected him because they thought that he was anti-establishment. And Cenk officially moved the goalpost to that specific position on January 7th when he tweeted, "I didn't say Trump is anti-war, I said MAGA is anti-war, so we're going to find out soon if I'm right or not. Because if his base says we should spend even more money slaughtering the defenseless Palestinians just because Trump's donors support Israel over us, then I was wrong." Now, Trump continued to do that, and they continued to support him nonetheless. Cenk maintained that position for quite some time. On June 20th of 2025, the 8th day of Trump's first war with Iran, he spotted one whole tweet from a now deleted MAGA account to prove that the Max left was indeed wrong about MAGA, arguing, "This is a person that a lot of the left think doesn't exist." Well, they don't now since their account's gone. "I see hundreds of comments like this every day." If that were true, he'd probably screenshot them to prove how right he was. "They're real people. They're not lying. They said anti-war, they mean anti-war. No, they're not in any cult. They're just trying to pick the least establishment person." He added, "A huge portion of the radical left really does believe this. They think every MAGA voter who says they're anti-war is lying. I get why the politicians and media figures might be lying, but what incentive does an average MAGA guy have to make up his position on war? It's not like they're shy about sharing their real opinions. Who are they trying to trick and why?" And on the same day, Cenk called on MAGA to prove the left wrong about them, writing, "Trump has given MAGA 2 weeks to convince him to not go to war. He's not going to listen to the left or anyone else, but he might listen to America first. He's trying to decide between you and the donor class, so if you meant it, this is the time to show you can stop a war." Now, he also scolded Max leftists for questioning the authenticity of MAGA's anti-war views, saying to user I am Sock, "Yes, driving away the anti-war part of MAGA from a coalition to prevent the war is a much better idea," he said sarcastically. "If you call them liars and yell fascist at them, that'll probably work better. I literally can't believe that you're blind enough and tribal enough to believe that." Now, 2 days later, he was still waiting for the MAGA opposition to this war to materialize, and he challenged them to be as anti-war as they claimed they were, questioning whether or not they would, quote, "grab some pom-poms and turn into neocons cheerleading for more war, or actually pressure Trump to stop it." But while he was waiting patiently for Trump supporters to tweet their opinions at him, people in his replies like Josiah showed him public opinion polls that, kind of disproved what he was saying. Not to mention, there were also some Trump supporters in his replies justifying Donald Trump's war, indicating their support for war with Iran, but Cenk kind of just put Iran aside and remained steadfast in his optimism and ended up claiming victory over the MAGA-hating Max Left less than a month later, arguing that he had definitive proof that Trump voters weren't in fact in a cult, writing, "I had a disagreement with many other left-wing hosts. They said Trump voters are all a cult and they would never criticize Trump. Now that even MAGA is ripping into Trump over Epstein, this debate is over, right? It'd be detached from reality to think they're not criticizing him." But when user I Am Soft pointed out that they were more outraged at Pam Bondi than Trump himself, Cenk accused the maximalist of being willfully blind, and he went on to explain how he had the wisdom and foresight that us far leftists lacked, writing, "Why did I think independents who voted for Trump," another goalpost move, "and even some MAGA would break from him on some issues? Because I bothered to talk to them and listen to them. Their politicians are completely full of shit, but a lot of those voters are genuinely anti-war and anti-corruption. And that's why they were so right and we were so wrong." See, they actually took the time to talk to MAGA podcast hosts, who, as we all know, represent all of MAGA, and Anna, for the first time, spoke to a Trump supporter, her neighbor Jeff, who was super nice to her, and because they had these important conversations, they were able to discern things that the hateful left never could have. That MAGA wasn't some monolith or a cult, rather they were a coalition of principled, anti-establishment truth seekers who were a little less mean to them on Twitter than leftists. But bravado aside, reality did start to catch up with the Young Turfs little by little. Anna, to her credit, ended up admitting that she was wrong about Trump being a fascist, and she was also wrong to take Trump at his word regarding Project 2025. Meanwhile, Cenk clung to the few anti-war MAGA chuds that he could find, like Marjorie Greene and Dave Smith and some tweets here and there, in order to prove that he was right all along and the left was wrong. And that MAGA, you know, they weren't as gung-ho about everything Trump was doing as the politicians are, because you see Marjorie Greene and Dave Smith aren't. And since they represent all of MAGA, obviously he's right and you're wrong. But when you fast forward to the current conflict and look at the public support for it among MAGA, I do think it's time to admit that Cenk Uygur maybe was a tiny bit too optimistic about MAGA, because as Gabe Fleischler points out, polls show that there was no MAGA split on Iran. Across 3 different polls, YouGov, CNN, and NBC, anywhere from 80% to 90% of MAGA Republicans approve of Donald Trump's strike on Iran. But it gets worse, because Adam Johnson writes, Republican support for bombing Iran was 53%, according to Quinnipiac's poll from January 14th. And then it shot up to 85 to 90% after Trump attacked Iran on February 28th. So there is a vague current of anti-war sentiment within the GOP, but the lesson is that it's superficial and easily jettisoned whenever their cult leader goes neocon. He adds, one more piece of context worth adding is this 2015 PPP poll. It found that 30% of Republicans supported bombing Agrabah, the fictional country from Aladdin, with only 13% opposing. Dems were 19% for, 39% opposed. The degree of knee-jerk anti-Muslim racism can't be overstated. In other words, Cenk, my friend, buddy, I think it's time for you to fill out that apology form to the Max Left. It's time for you to take the L. Because if you just pretend like you weren't comically fucking wrong about MAGA, I don't think you can live this down. But if you take the L and you say, yes, I overestimated MAGA's ability to be principled, I think that we can move on. But you were so smug and comically wrong that you can't just like pretend like this didn't happen. They support war. You were wrong and you have to eat shit and admit that you were wrong. Now, listen, in all seriousness, I'm having a lot of fun, but I'm not trying to needlessly shit on the Young Turks, because, you know, I praised Cenk with a couple of videos last year when he took genocide supporters to task. I thought that that was commendable, so I give credit where it's due. But I think that we need Cenk's major fucking L to serve as an example for other MAGA curious pundits and even some potential 2028 Democratic contenders that you cannot reason with MAGA, and if you do, we're not going to take you seriously. This is a political cult that cannot be reasoned with or appealed to. As Cameron bluntly put it on Twitter, I don't know what word we can use to describe these people, but sheep or cattle. They literally have zero beliefs about anything except supporting Trump. And believe it or not, that's actually a really important point that everybody needs to acknowledge, because if we don't acknowledge that fact of reality, then podcasters are going to continue to coddle MAGA dipshits, and politicians will continue to water down their policies in hopes of appealing to MAGA dipshits.
Look how fast they fucking turn around and we're like, actually, people is okay.
existence and are totally not fucking gettable. And I have to pick on TYT a bit because they were one of the few centrists or populists or whatever they call themselves these days who still feigned ignorance about MAGA when everybody knew it was nothing more than a glorified political cult comprised of empty heads to be filled with the values and principles of Trump's liking. And almost everybody saw it, so the question is like, what took them so long? Even Trump's cronies see it. For example, Trump is apparently giving shoes to his cronies, and they were afraid to not wear them, even though, at least when it came to Marco Rubio's shoes, they were clearly too fucking big. But if Rubio doesn't wear them, then he risks offending Donald Trump. And if you offend Daddy Trump, you offend the MAGA hive mind, which you're going to need on your side if you want to run for president in 2028. So do you want to know what Marco Rubio did? He beclowned himself and put on those big-ass fucking shoes because he needs to stay in the good graces of the MAGA cult leader because he knows that it all could go tits up for him with a single fucking tweet. He'd get excommunicated like that. But if you're wondering how people as intelligent as Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian could possibly think MAGA isn't a cult as late of 2025 and presumably 2026, it's because they have terminal cases of podcast brain, where they think that MAGA podcasters are somehow representative of regular MAGA voters. In fact, they probably still think that MAGA is anti-war because in one of their latest videos, they talk about how Trump is taking heat from MAGA, but it's just MAGA podcasters like Megyn Kelly and Joe Rogan, as if the skepticism of Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly is indicative of a broader trend with MAGA voters. But just take a look.
It is exactly the opposite
Trump
what President Trump ran on. Exactly the opposite. And yet Fox News is salivating over the prospect of more war, unextended conflict, and Lindsey Graham is its spokesperson.
You do be seeing Lindsey Graham on Fox News quite a bit these days. Like, I feel like he makes multiple Fox News appearances per day. He's like sweaty. He seems a little bit manic, like super excited, like salivating over the thought of like bombs dropping on the heads of civilians in these Middle Eastern countries, like totally depraved lunatic. And it feels good that for once you're hearing people who aren't on the left call it what it is. Okay. These people are warmongers, and Trump did renege on pretty much everything he campaigned on.
Yes, because glazing fascists who helped Donald Trump get elected is, I guess, preferable to admitting that they were wrong and the left was right to call bullshit on how anti-war MAGA was from the very beginning. But, you know, putting aside my own pettiness, I actually do think that people like Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur, they do need to admit that they were wrong about MAGA, full stop. Because this idea that MAGA can be courted and won over is naive and downright fucking dangerous, because it's keeping the Overton window firmly in the right when we need to cut our losses and move forward without MAGA if we ever want to make progress in this godforsaken country. And even though leftists like myself have been accused of living in echo chambers, the reason why I'm so cynical about MAGA is because I know them better than a lot of people. As I explained on a recent Rat on Leftist Mafia, I'm cynical about them because I have them in my family. It's not that I'm getting my idea of who MAGA is from podcasters. I know these people in real life. Okay, this is a non sequitur, but I have to bring it up because it still triggers me. Anna Kasparian and Cenk, how they talk about how, and I'm so sorry, I have to do this. They talk about how, oh my God, nobody wants to talk to the other side. Anna Kasparian's like, I actually talked to my neighbor Jeff. He helped me carry in my bike and he was lovely. It's like, okay, that doesn't mean you are like, that's not an accurate representation. You don't live with these people. You don't go to Thanksgiving with them. You don't have to interact with them anytime a family member's in the hospital or a fucking funeral happens. Like, you don't have to live with these people and suffer. Like, they don't make you suffer. You could say, bye, Jeff, and close your door, and you never have to see Jeff again. Maybe like when you're leaving and you see him in the parking lot. Like, you don't have to deal with these people. The people who are the most cynical about MAGA are the ones that have them in their motherfucking family, and that's me. I have them in my family. They're the worst people. They are irredeemable. Their brains are fundamentally fucking broken, and there is no way to repair it. And so, like, listen, I think that we have to figure out some way to bring these people back to reality. I don't know how you do that. I think we have to start talking about radical solutions, like mandatory education.
We don't have time. We don't have time to sit and hold the hands of people who are about to chug unpasteurized milk. I unfortunately, I think there's a lot of battles to be fought. I'm not going to stop them from shitting themselves to death at this point. So drink all the unpasteurized milk you can get, all the methylene blue that you can get your hands on. Avoid all vaccinations. Eat nothing but raw red meat and salt excessively, and tons of alcohol to consumption. I don't have time now to fight that battle as well, right? Like there's way more nice people that deserve healthcare.
Yes, we have to basically push them to the side and govern the country without them, and do our very best to rehabilitate them. If that means mandatory education, that's what we have to do. Like, I'm sorry, like people.
Mike of the unit says we need gulags, literally.
For the record, I don't mean gulags. Was that convincing? But anyways, Anna and Cenk, if they actually spoke to actual MAGA diehards as opposed to, say, podcasters, I don't think that they would be as optimistic. And this goes deeper than MAGA, right? There's always been this portion of the population in America wandering around with empty heads that they're looking to fill with something, anything, right? Sometimes it's conspiracy theories. Sometimes it's fundamentalist religion. They're just not intellectually curious enough to form their own thoughts. So they seek out entities that'll dictate how they should think for them. That's what they want. And this is not something that I'm just like pulling out of my ass. I've seen it firsthand. I remember a conversation that I had with a family member before they joined the MAGA cult back in, like, it was like 2010. It was during my neckbeard days, and we were watching, this is weird, but stick with me. We were watching 19 Kids and Counting on TLC, and I commented that I don't like this family because they teach to their children young earth creationism, which was stupid. Now, my fundamentalist family member asked me why I didn't like creationism, because even though we were kind of taught that, they didn't know about that word. And when we grew up, you know, we were evangelicals, but we didn't focus so much on how old the earth was. But I explained I didn't like that they were teaching their kids that because it was objectively wrong. They think the earth is 5,000 years old, and that's just idiotic. Now, do you want to know what that family member I had this conversation with told me? They deadass said, oh, well, if that's what they believe, I guess I believe that too, because I believe in God, and I believe that God created the earth. I mean, I could have just lied, I guess, and given them the correct answer, but it just goes to show you that they have no thoughts of their own. It's just, well, the tribe thinks this, so I think that too. Now, to be fair, this person was already, again, deeply fundamentalist, so they probably already were told that at some point. You know, I'm surprised they didn't already identify as creationists, but again, we never really heard that term. They didn't, at least, but it stunned me, and it stuck with me because, like, there wasn't a single shred of curiosity or critical thinking, and it hurt me. I had to, like, reckon with the fact that there are people in this country who don't want to think. They don't want to think. They're renting out their brains to religions or politicians. And that was deeply disturbing to me. Now, fast forward to today, and the same person who I had that conversation with thinks that Trump's ties to Jeffrey Epstein are fake news and probably supports war with Iran because they think it's going to usher in the end times. Now, yes, this is anecdotal, but it's generally the mentality of Trump's biggest dick riders, right? This is the rank and file that Cenk was desperately trying to sane wash for some reason. All that Cenk had to do was talk to somebody with MAGA family, and I'm sure that they would confirm that they are indeed insane. They have plenty of stories to tell, right? I mean, if TYT wanted to talk with one of Trump's biggest supporters, I would have put them in touch with my uncle, and Cenk would try to bring up, like, paid family leave, and my uncle would start shitting his pants and shrivel up into a corn cob at the thought of any person of color or any immigrant benefiting from some kind of support from, you know, corporations or the government. It's just not acceptable, even though he's on welfare himself. Like, the bottom line is that there's no getting through to these people, and it's frustrating that individuals like Cenk and Anna are so dense that they refuse to acknowledge that reality. And this reality is important. We all have to come to the same conclusion if we're ever going to survive as a country, okay? We have to disregard everything that they say and just move forward without them the best that we can. Because if we keep ascribing intelligence to them and pretending like we can get them on board for some vast political coalition, we're going to continue to let them hold us back. That doesn't mean that you don't try to foster class solidarity among working people, because of course that is the ultimate goal. But my point is that we need to get better at knowing when to cut our losses. knowing when people are just too far gone mentally. And MAGA truly is a lost cause. If you are still with Donald Trump in 2026, the year of our Lord, you are a lost fucking cause. And us fixing the country hinges on the sane Americans waking up and acknowledging that uncomfortable fact of reality.
Ideas.
Recovery mode, my brain ideas. Recovery mode, my brain ideas.
What? What the fuck is that from? There. Chinese noodle, Dad. You like Chinese noodle? You like Chinese noodle? Puppy, puppy. Oh. Oh shit, Gamers Nexus uploaded a Discord alternative to you. Wait. No. No, you don't get any. You don't get any tofu. You already got some. Dude, you already got your tofu. Stop. No. Cthulhu. Poke it all. Stop. Don't. Cthulhu, quit. Aggressive coloring. This is secondary. That can't be two. I can't. Who's grass secondary cut? And our first evolution. Because execute is its first, no? Or is execute psychic first? Yeah, that's what I thought. Who else has grass? Harris? But it's not red. Harris is red. Ooh. Like, I think Harris is red. Who else? Fucking runs over there. Kitchen and just walks over to the kitchen. Food cookie.
Shoot.
Hey, running around, Dip.
What's that? Shoot.
Stop. 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 Cthulhu.
Beep. Stop.
But who's secondary? Fuck you, he's orange. Boshan Fujin. Boshan.
关注。
红烤炉吃海本，吃 fuck you。
火山。
特色。火山。度你约。美丽。特色。度蜜月。我是葡萄。
路中心。找。怎么办？
我们去。How do we get to the volcano? Chào bữa đỏ. Chào bữa đỏ. Yo.
It's getting old, bro. I can't settle down playing the same song on the same stage with old bros. It's gotta stop if you believe it. Every gig, my Doremi and Beshna quells gently weeping. We got jams, they don't really know though. We got plenty tricks, they just wanna see the old show. But we wanna see them things bounce like a pogo, so we can't say we only play it once, homie Wopo. If you wanna shake it, do that, cause we gonna play it. We at it every day, every day, every. If you want it, just ask, guarantee we play it. We at it every day, every day. Name is Lirin, get a clue, I'm the backup. See us coming through, better move, better back up. In the club we chillin',
Easy.
I'm just trying to hop at the toilet with the open toes. Open those bottles. Wait a minute, Fergie, hold the phone. Did you say
Dippy. No.
Guess that we better stop.
No.
At the cantina, but I ain't trying to play that boring stuff. That's far enough. It's the same song every time we playin'. We need something new and catchy, is what I be saying. But it's always the same request from those lively patrons. So let's stop there. Cause I ain't trying to get bored. I'd rather have my dome chopped off by a Sith Lord.
尝尝，在下地铁站。
We got plenty tricks, they just wanna see the old show. But we wanna see them things bounce like a pogo, so we can't say we only play it once, homie Wopo. If you wanna shake it, do that, cause we gonna play it. We at it every day, every day, every. If you want it, just ask, guarantee we play it. We at it every day.
绿灯，经典。再来，确定这是
What the hell was that song? Cloak and Dagger. You're not. Up the history.
我不确定这是公共路口。
你查查下一个地铁站在哪里？去过超市。下车后，我们走左。Okay, fucking deaf ass. 请你说说附近的地铁站。附近地铁站。确定。好难。英语。
想试试这条路。
需。
公共。红绿灯。灯，总的来说。路人也不知道这个地方。路人也不知道这个地方。路人不知道这个地方。
Swims freely through the water, catches prey with its scythe-like and drains the victim's fluids. Scythe-like arms freely in the water. Who's in the water? 我们弯弯路怎么走？God damn it.
音乐剧。
Who has scythe or like arms? 看下一个红绿灯，很近。
确定。入口。这是。
美丽。黄。特色。度明月。地。
查查。下。地铁站在哪里？
Okay. God, who the Who's water that has fucking scythe-like arms? Swims freely through the water. Like, which Pokemon has this description? There's no way that's Scyther. Like, Scythe-like arms is like, oh, what's Scyther? Because no one else has Scythe-like arm. Kabutops, maybe? Maybe it's Kabutops. Right? You just got fucking... He's got Scythe, right? Yeah, it's gotta be him, right? Because he's water, like, fucking water. Right? It's one of the burgers, right? Storm? What the fuck? Dun, dun, dun. Did my mic? Oh, okay, now it is. I was like, did it just stop working for no fucking reason? Jaw body. See how Chong-yi. She's Gong Gong Chang. Don't see. Fuck you, dead ass. Chong-yi. Fuck. Don't see. Fuck you, deaf ass. Fucking. I'm fucking at you. Let's shop. How about we don't? How about we don't? At least it did. Mm-hmm. Yummy noodles. Are you trying to bite my hand? Dang, who was going to play? Because that's within 5 years of that. It has game modes. Okay, so it's gotta be fucking 2008. So it's gotta be 2008. Knocked out first person. So it might have been an exclusive. A little Bitcoin too. Actually, wouldn't it be one? Oh, look at that. That was actually a good guess. So I think it was on PlayStation. So it's an adventure. Yes. This was on PlayStation. Extra game I was on PlayStation 2 we had. But PlayStation exclusive side. That's fantasy, comedy, action. Side view? That princess isn't in here, dude. Okay, so it's indie or hack and slash. Indie or hack and slash. Okay, I don't know. That's why I think, I mean, this basically fits Fat Princess pretty well. So it's got to be like a PS3, like not arcade. What the hell do they call it? Oh. On the way. God damn it. Boom. Doesn't have game modes. Oh, it's be full. It's coming 95 to 99. Mac and iOS. It is a cyber game. Metroid, maybe? No, Metroid's. Mega Man? Fuck. It's not side view, it's just isometric. Isometric sci-fi game.
Remember Marty? Major label A&R scout. Made it to the top, now his luck's running out. He can't stay focused, life is getting harder since his trophy wife ran off with the founder of a startup. You're as good as your last hit.
Late 90s.
Marty makes excuses and he blames Spotify. The label press calls and yells, Marty, you're fired. But after the divorce, he can't afford to retire. For the next year, Marty tries to find his way. Moves into an ash ramp for 2 whole days. Drops out of cooking school, then 1 month later, he's on Hermosa Beach, working as a waiter. Then one fine morning at the crawfish shack, Marty makes a plan to get his life on track. He sees a flyer on the wall while he's on his break for a DJ set by his old friend Blake. Hey man, it's Marty. It's been a long time. What are you working on these days? Blake and Marty, they go for coffee.
Happy Fallout? Fallout 1 would have came out around here. It was isometric, right? Ooh. It was 95 or 96. The turn-based too. What the hell?
And our #1 song on the EDM countdown, 4 weeks running, you guessed it, Krylex. I don't really get it, but this kid is everywhere.
Momentum builds, but it all caves in. The label calls Marty, he just can't win. The 360 deal Blake signed in 04 has been optioned by the label for 10 years more. Blake can't keep any cash from Cry tonight because the label still owns all the master rights. Blake reinvents himself doing laptop rap. Marty's back to waiting tables at the Crawfish Shack. Marty's back to waiting tables at the Crawfish Shack. Marty's back to waiting tables at the Crawfish Shack.
Oh, where the fuck are the Pippin games, dog? Let's see. Okay, so it's playing turn-based. Is there a turn-based sci-fi game? Turn-based isometric sci-fi. Wow. I'll make this TS on turn-based. Fucking. Yeah, so I just answered the same thing. You gotta stop. Damn it.
Brothers on the rise now. Endless celebrations all in my house. Levitating now, I'm super duper fly now. London boy, but DC where I reside now. Put the time in while you always yelling time out. And the critic, cause I know I'm coming with it. You were sitting, you were wishing I was handling my business. Now I got the ball like Harry Potter playing Quidditch. And my business is humongous, you would think that happens in it. Damn man, I'm all that, yeah, I'm all that. Looking for that whip, yeah, that what you call that. I'ma blow up in the summer, have him yelling fall back. And I've always been ahead like an effing ball cap. Man, I came in the game like, whoa. Got a couple chains on me cause I like gold. They told me I'm the best and I told them I know. Cause when I'm in your town, every ticket I sold.
Magic on two. Oh, so fucking funny. It's fucking heal the enemy. Heal the fucking enemy. Okay, that's so stupid. I'd sit there fucking. Chrono Trigger.
Set up like little toys around, like while I'm drawing. Like, I'll just kind of like come over here and be like, today I'm gonna draw with like the lizard and this pterodactyl that has kind of a bent nose. So, gonna set those guys up. Go inside the caboodle here.
I'm a fraud named Peppy, and I live with my 3 best friends. I forgive when they stink up the bathroom when I'm playing Doom. Close the door, land wolf, damn PU. Cathode ray to my giant eyes, chilling in the graveyard. Who's that guy with the pizza pie and the spider eggs and the kiwi bird with the tiny legs? Dapper Harambe, they crash on the floor. 2017 internet lore. How did it happen? I don't really know. Up on the wall at the Mapplethorpe show. I'm a 4chan star, don't ask me why. When the memes on the scene straight multiply. Pants all the way down to my feet when I pee. It feels good, man, so please let me be. Boys Club, Boys Club. Welcome to the Boys Club. Making
What does this stop?
Welcome to the Boys Club. Why? Cause it feels good, man. 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 Boys Club, Boys Club. Welcome to the Boys Club. Making hella noise club. Welcome to the Boys Club. Why? Cause it feels good, man. Why? Cause it feels good, man. Why? Cause it feels good, man. Why? Cause it feels good, man.
I'm a dog named Andy. Well, maybe not a dog, but I'm drawn with a handy and a pair of lidded peeps and a pie hole and a pair of long ears, short shorts, I snort, I roll. With a bunch of bros, our apartment start. Quick with a thumbs up and a smart remark. The art is sharp in color, I'm mad yellow. Snark when I'm gonna bark. My bad, fellas. As if sniffing rock bottom, pop another bottle and I'm off and hot dogging when I'm chilling like a champion. Freezer stinks, I'm so freaking lit that I become a link. Now, did you know a thing about a fancy cheese? Cut the pass to a cat. Sunglasses, please. On the last page, that was me, I guess. Got a catchphrase? That would be a yes.
Boys Club, Boys Club. Welcome to the Boys Club. Making hella noise club. Welcome to the Boys Club. Why? Cause it feels good, man. 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 Boys Club, Boys Club. Welcome to the Boys Club. Making hella noise club. Welcome to the Boys Club. Why? Cause it feels good, man. Why? Cause it feels good, man. Why?
What the hell? This is just...
Cause it feels good, man.
Yo, you ever seen a poop this lengthy? I'm the truth in the bathroom, dudes envy. Crude with a tooth, but my mood is friendly. Getting your attention ever so gently. Begging your pardon, my partners who rent an apartment is...
Okay, it just came out. What else come out this year? So now it's... Jump Space came on once. Sports TV. Pizza. No! What game have even come out? It's definitely on PC. Into fall. Hold of Land came. This is fucking sci-fi. They made Quarantine Zone though. That came out this year, right? Yeah.
About 3,500 South Africans have entered the United States as refugees since the program started in May 2025. Many white South Africans and Afrikaners have welcomed Trump's support, but insisted they nevertheless want to remain in their country. And others who left decades ago are now returning.
It's so crazy. White South Africans, often referred to as refugees by the American right, are choosing to go back to South Africa, of all places, despite the ongoing white genocide that's taking place. And yes, that's the actual term that Trump himself used last year when referring to Afrikaners.
It's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about. Farmers are being killed. They happen to be white.
You heard that right. The president, who's complicit with the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza and ethnic cleansing in the West Bank, had the audacity to accuse another country of doing a genocide. And within his first month back in office, he took action to stop said genocide. He signed an executive order which basically accuses South Africa of hypocrisy, ironically enough, because they're accusing Israel and its allies of committing a genocide at the International Court of Justice, even though they're supposedly guilty of genocide themselves, according to Donald Trump and his delusions. Now, in the same executive order, Trump announced that he would punish South Africa for their quote-unquote genocide against white South Africans by cutting off financial assistance, and he also announced in that same executive order that he's rolling out a refugee program for Afrikaners, even though he's not letting anyone else into the country. And that's not hyperbole. David J. Beard, the director of immigration studies at Cato, reports not a single refugee in the world was allowed to come legally except for white South Africans. And they rolled out the red carpet for these motherfuckers, where the deputy secretary himself greeted them with open arms when they arrived.
Welcome to the United States of America.
Oh, God.
A lot of you, I think, are farmers, right? When you have quality seeds, you can put them in foreign soil and they will blossom, they will bloom. And we are excited to welcome you here to our country where we think you will bloom and we will hopefully allow you to have fulfilling lives for your children. And then we will benefit alongside you.
So as you can see, they treat white immigrants very differently than black and brown ones. But it's not just that the Trump regime was incredibly kind to them, because kindness is one thing. They offered these quote unquote refugees cash assistance, as well as housing, free healthcare for a year, job placement assistance, and even legal aid to help them navigate the complex American immigration system. And if these same benefits were offered to black and brown immigrants, or even refugees, like actual refugees, right-wingers would lose their fucking minds. They'd shit their pants and foam at the mouth and talk about how we just can't afford this, but since it's being offered to white people, we don't hear a peep from them. It's almost like their opposition to immigration has some sort of racial component. And, you know, God forbid we call them racists, because we all know that accusing somebody of racism is actually worse than racism itself. But the question is, why would these white South Africans want to risk their lives and return home back to a country that supposedly wants to genocide them? Well, let's hear it from them. Reuters reports that the South Africans who are leaving are generally citing better quality of life and a lower cost of living as part of the reason why they're returning to South Africa. One South African woman who's lived in North Carolina said that health insurance is actually more affordable in South Africa, and she also prefers their schools, which isn't a shocker because we've defunded our schools in the United States. Now, a different South African expat implied that Trump was actually the reason behind his decision to leave. Reuters writes, Andrew Veitch left South Africa after being held up at gunpoint in his car, but now he feels there are greater threats in the United States, he said, citing mass shootings in public spaces, as well as violence by U.S. immigration officers. Quote, people are being shot in broad daylight. American citizens are being shot and killed, said the 53-year-old who moved to California in 2003. Quote, I don't want to live in a place like this. Goddamn. So things are so bad in the United States that this refugee is willing to risk his life and go back to a country where there's supposedly a genocide taking place. Right-wingers have got to have some cognitive dissonance when they read the story, right? Probably not. They're probably not going to read this story, and that's assuming that they can read it in the first place. But listen, in all honesty, I don't blame them. They say that, you know, South Africa isn't necessarily perfect, but it's getting better very quickly, whereas in the United States, things keep getting worse. The cost of living is skyrocketing, health insurance keeps going up, our schools have been defunded, and now we have an armed Gestapo terrorizing people in the streets. And they're saying this just isn't really a great environment to raise a family in, and I think that most people would probably agree with that. Now, to be fair, most of the South Africans leaving the United States, they've been here longer than their 2025 refugee counterparts, but that may soon change too, seeing as how a lot of South Africans are choosing to capitalize on a new portal that's letting them restore their South African citizenship if they so choose to. And a shocking number of them are seemingly seizing the opportunity. They're taking the government up on that offer despite the genocide that Donald Trump is concerned trolling about. Now, we don't have exact numbers, but there is a growing return to South Africa movement on Facebook, where you have a lot of expats from South Africa that are living in Europe and the US who are planning to go back because the country's getting better. And on top of that, the people that Reuters spoke to, they said, we know people who are also returning home. But the biggest tell, in my opinion, was this. Reuters continues, Anton van Heerden, CEO of employment agency DNA Employer of Record, said inquiries from white South Africans seeking to return had jumped 70% in the past 6 months. Angel Jones, CEO of Johannesburg-based recruitment firm Homecoming X, reported a roughly 30% spike in inquiries since 2024. Damn. And I've got to say, it's really coincidental to see a lot of white South Africans leave specifically after Donald Trump became president again. I wonder if there's a connection there. I wonder if he's objectively making the country a worse place to live. But basically, South Africans are choosing to jump ship because they don't expect things to get better in the United States anytime soon. Nobody does. But as bad as it is here, you would think that poverty and political instability and having an embarrassing imbecile as president is going to be preferable to genocide, right? Because if they go back home, they're going to be, well, as you might have guessed, there is no genocide in South Africa. Shocker, I know. But the white genocide myth became mainstream among the American right after white South African Nazis like Elon Musk served them that white victim narrative on a silver platter. The crux of their bullshit claim is that white South African farmers are being murdered and having their land stolen from them in a racially motivated crackdown by the South African government, but that is just Not true. It's complete bullshit. The South African government passed the Expropriation Act, which clarified existing authority that it already had to expropriate land without compensation for the public good. Now, our government has a similar power. It's called eminent domain. But right-wingers claimed that the Expropriation Act was going to be used to steal land from white South Africans, since they still hold the majority of land in South Africa, even in a post-apartheid system. So the fear was that the government would try to mitigate past racial injustices and attempt to end institutional racism against the black South Africans by taking land from white people and giving it to black people. That never actually happened. In fact, the law hasn't even been used once. No land has been taken. And ironically, Trump, who's accusing them of doing this, has seized more land from white people than the South African government. He's seizing land to build his wall on the southern border. He's taking land from white people, but yet he's saying, oh my God, they're taking land from white people. That, my friends, is just so incredibly hilarious to me. You can't make this shit up. Now, as for the claim that white farmers in South Africa are being murdered, is that actually true? And the answer is yes, it has happened because South Africa has a comparatively high murder rate. But the right has used anecdotes of white farmer murders as evidence that whites are being systematically targeted and disproportionately murdered, when in fact, whites are underrepresented in murder rates in South Africa compared to black South Africans, who are more often than not the victims of murder. And we put out a more in-depth video about this very topic last year, and I'll link to that down below if you want to watch it. But the TLDR is that there was never a white genocide in South Africa.
We put out
black
a video.
South Africans to this day are the actual victims of racial discrimination, contrary to popular belief. Even though apartheid ended, remnants of that white supremacist system are still very much embedded within state institutions. Abolishing apartheid didn't automatically create parity between black and white South Africans. More has to be done to address past and present racial injustices. So the white South Africans who are crying victim are just mad that the incremental steps being taken by the government to mitigate institutional racism threatens the advantages that they've benefited from simply because they're white. Basically, they think that equality is tantamount to oppression, much like whites in the United States. So they're crying victim, and in some cases, they're crying genocide, because they don't like that the government is taking
people are
steps
killed
to make
like
people
flies.
So there was never a white genocide in South Africa, but the fact that so many South Africans are leaving the United States to return home now makes that claim so much more laughable. And it really speaks to how bad things are here, where if people have another country that they can go to, they're doing it. And even some Trump supporters are admitting that things have gotten so much worse since he took office. And this is a little bit off topic, but I just have to show you this quick clip to show you what I mean by that.
Now, we've been chatting to two South Floridians who tell two very different stories of two very different Americas. One is Eric Silverman. He's a real estate investor. We chatted with him after he was filling up his luxury car with premium gas. And the other is Richard Stanley. He's a construction worker who we talked to right after he filled up his pickup truck with diesel. I want you to hear from both of these men about how they're processing this moment.
Oil prices go up and down, stock market goes up and down, interest rates go up and down. In the short run, it sucks, but I think that it's going to be short run.
He was bragging the other day on news, 190 or 290 somewhere. It's $5.50 a gallon. I miss my Uncle Joe. I was balling then. Now, I couldn't even tell you. I couldn't even show you $5 in my pocket.
And Anna, Eric and Richard come from two very different walks of life. But what these two men have in common is they both voted for President Trump in 2024. You heard from Richard there, the construction worker, that he misses his Uncle Joe.
Oh, that clip is amazing. I love that clip so much. Uncle Joe, come back. Oh, we miss you. I don't even fuck with Joe Biden like that, but that's just brilliant. You love to see that, right? But I showed you that clip because it speaks to how dissatisfied so many people are with this regime. They don't care that Trump is dropping bombs on schools or committing a genocide or that he tried to steal the last election. They care about how inconvenient he's making life for them. And Trump is very much making things inconvenient for people. And, you know,
season of the Indy Racing League in 1996 is incredibly bizarre for a wide-ranging set of reasons. From a tie in the driver standings resulting in 2 separate drivers being crowned champion, to the season only having 3 races spread from January to May, it was a truly befuddling year. Many race fans such as myself, however, are infatuated by the pure weirdness of this season. One of the parts that I've always found interesting, however, isn't something that I've seen get talked about before. If you look through the championship standings, you get to see that not a single person finished every race. Now, this statistic isn't the most off the wall in the world. Hey, in the 2025 IndyCar season, only 2 drivers had a perfect record of finishing. But the 1996 season was especially odd, and a true statistical anomaly. This is a story of 1996, the year of the Universal DNFs. So contrary to what I said in the intro, there were actually 3 drivers who finished every race they ran.
The fucking
big was that those 3 drivers only made 1 start. These 3 were Davy Jones, Daniel Gaius, and Hideshi Matsuda, all of whom made their one and only start at that year's Indy 500. Jones, who was part of a one-off entry for Gallus Racing, actually finished the race in 2nd, technically getting the best average finish out of anyone that season. The story of Ungaius, meanwhile, was shrouded in sadness. Following the tragic passing of pole sitter Scott Brayton after a practice crash mere days after qualifying, Danny Ungaius would be drafted in to return to the cockpit of an IndyCar for the first time since 1987. Ungaius actually held his own in the race, however, finishing in 7th. This would go on to be his final ever IndyCar finish. Hideshi Matsuda, meanwhile, finished directly behind Ungaius in 8th. Every other Indy 500 only driver failed to finish. This includes Alessandra Zampedri, Scott Harrington, Mark Dismore, Joe Gosick, Brad Murphy, Racing Gardner, and Marco Greco. An interesting note on Zampedri is the fact that he was classed in 4th, even despite his last lap crash where he nearly lost his left foot. Stan Waddles also made a lone start this season, that coming in the season opener at Walt Disney World Speedway, which also ended in a crash for him. Once we get into the drivers with more than 1 start, we see those DNFs rack up. A further 9 drivers started just 2 races that year. Paul Durant was the lowest class of them,
at the backyard,
running just 4 total laps between his 2 starts. Front wing damage on the pace lap caused a lap 1 DNF in Phoenix, and a blown motor would end his Indy 500 just 3 laps in. Durant has the unsavory mark of both a 100% DNF rate in 1996 and a 100% DNF rate for his very brief IndyCar career. Many of the other 2-start drivers had a 100% DNF rate as well. These were Fermin Velez, Jim Guthrie, David Cudgrave, and Scott Brayton. Brayton, of course, was meant to start all 3 races, but as mentioned before, was killed in a practice crash during the month of May. David Cudgrave's 2 DNFs, meanwhile, were quite peculiar.
No, they're no fucking dare car.
Walt Disney World Speedway, which in turn resulted in him qualifying a staggering 34 miles an hour slower than Buddy Lazier's pole speed. To underscore that, if a driver qualified 34 miles an hour slower than Scott McLaughlin's pole speed at Iowa Speed, if 34 Walt Disney World Speedway, which in turn resulted in him qualifying a staggering 34 miles an hour slower than Buddy Lazier's pole speed. To underscore that, if a driver qualified 34 miles an hour slower than Scott McLaughlin's pole speed at Iowa Speedway in 2024, that driver would have started at the back of the Indy Next field. Cudgrave is marked as falling out of the race 4 laps in due to transmission issues. However, he was actually black flagged by race control for being too slow after falling a lap down only 3 laps in. Phoenix saw a far better run all around. Even with a qualifying speed 23 miles an hour off the pole, he was running at pace all day and keeping it clean before he ran out of gas and pulled into the RV park around lap 168. Cudgrave would be classed in 10th. The other 4 drivers with 2 starts were John Yunser, who retired from Indy coming to take the green, Michel Jourdain Jr., who crashed in Phoenix with the previously mentioned Fermin Velez, Eddie Cheever, whose DNF at Walt Disney World actually netted him a better finishing result than his 11th place run at the Indy 500, and Buddy Lazier, who won the 1996 Indy 500 following a back injury that took him out of competing in Phoenix. Now we can take a look at the full-time racers, and we start with a driver part of the 100% DNF club. Johnny Parsons has one of the more bizarre career paths in the history of American open wheel racing. He made his IndyCar debut in 1969, but in 1996, at the ripe age of 51, he was racing full-time in IndyCar for the very first time. Sadly, each of his races ended in mechanical DNFs. Parsons was the lowest classified full-time driver in season points, placing 17th behind both Eddie Cheever and Buddy Lazier. The case of the remaining 14 drivers is an odd one still. They split almost exactly down the middle between drivers with 2 DNFs and those with only 1. In reverse order, the 2 DNF drivers with one noticeable exemption that I'll touch on momentarily goes as follows. Jean Paul Jr. in 15th place, Stefan Gregoire in 13th, Lyn St. James in 12th, Davey Hamilton in 9th, Tony Stewart in 8th, Arie Luyendyk in 7th, and Roberto Guerrero in 4th. Strangely enough, and this is a point that will be touched on again in this video, the only one of the 8 drivers who DNF'd twice who actually finished the Indy 500 was Davey Hamilton. The rest of them all DNF'd. Of these drivers, Arie Luyendyk and Tony Stewart are fascinating cases. Tony, frankly, had a shot to win all 3 races, but came up second in Walt Disney World and DNF'd the other 2. Arie Luyendyk, meanwhile, scored the victory in Phoenix. As I mentioned a few moments ago, there's one more driver with an even more bizarre case that will be mentioned soon. Now there were only 6. Going once again in reverse order from the bottom to the top, let's start by talking about Michele Alboreto in 11th. 1996 was Alboreto's only year in American open wheel racing, which was unfortunate because he showed some serious speed. In the 96 season, Alboreto finished 4th in Orlando and 8th in Phoenix. His 1 DNF was the Indy 500 with a gearbox failure 43 laps in. Even breaking into the 1996-97 season, his final 2 IndyCar starts in the later half of 96 saw a 3rd place run in New Hampshire and a 5th place run in Las Vegas. Indy at the very end of the 96 IRL season was his only ever IndyCar DNF, and had it not happened, he very well could have pushed himself up a heck of a lot higher in the points. 9th in the points, tied with Davey Hamilton, was sports car ace Johnny O'Connell. O'Connell's IndyCar career was somewhat similar to Alboreto, although a bit less successful if I'm honest. He finished 7th and 5th in the first 2 races of the
Mechanics
season, another IndyCar race again. His DNF in the Indy 500 came just 4 laps after Alboreto, as he suffered a fuel pickup problem. Mike Groff had an under-the-radar run to 6th in the season points. As one of the more qualified drivers in the series, Groff impressed with finishes of 6th and 3rd before his car caught fire whilst he was running in 5th at Indy. Groff, in my book, was one of the best drivers from this era to never really get a big break. 4th place is a driver who I've had the privilege of commentating on during the first half of 2024, Richie Hearn. Hearn bucks a trend of pretty much everybody else, as his DNF came in Walt Disney World. He finished 4th and 3rd in Phoenix and Indy respectively, and tied Roberto Guerrero in the Drivers' Championship. 3rd place, meanwhile, was undisputed and went the way of Robbie Buell. Buell's DNF split his season, with an engine failure disrupting a rather great race for him in Phoenix. And finally, we have our 2 champions of Scott Sharp and Buzz Calkins. To those unaware, the reason why they were both awarded the championship was because the original Indy Racing League rulebook had no tiebreaker scenarios put in place. By the rules that just about every other racing series on planet Earth uses, Scott Sharp would have been in 2nd, as he had no wins. He did have a 2nd place finish in Phoenix, however his other 2 results were DNFs. Both were down to late crashes, first in Walt Disney World where he was classed in 11th, and second was in Indy where he was classed in 10th. Had he avoided the barrier in either race, Scott Sharp would have likely been the undisputed champion, but if a tiebreaker rule was in place, it would have gone to Buzz Calkins. Calkins has the odd record of being a one-time race winner, winning his first ever race, and being a one-time champion in his first ever season. Calkins followed up his triumph in Orlando with a 6th place run in Phoenix and a brake failure in Indy that put him in 17th. Now to look at the season a bit more broadly, let's start by taking it race by race. Each race from the 1996 season saw 9 finishers. Round 1 at Walt Disney was cut down to 9 from 20 starters. Round 2 in Phoenix was cut down from 22, while the Indy 500 had 9 from the traditional 33 starters. This works out to be a total of 48 DNFs, 27 finishes, and a season DNF rate of about 64%. So roughly 2/3 of the starts during the 1996 Indy Racing League season ended in a DNF. Of these 48 DNFs, 29 of them were listed mechanical, meaning the reason for retirement was listed as a part failure rather than an accident. 15 of them were down to crashes, and the other 4 were marked by me as other. These other retirements include David Cudrave being parked and Scott Brain's handling woes in Walt Disney, Johnny Parsons' pit fire at Phoenix, and Mike Groff's fire during the Indy 500. This works out to be about 60.4% mechanical retirements, 31.25% crashes, and 8 1/3% being the other retirements just mentioned. Another fascinating note to raise about this season is the fact that there are only 7 lead lap finishers for the entire season. This works out to be 2 in both Walt Disney World and Phoenix, and 3 in Indy. There were no repeat lead lap finishers either. 7 drivers finished on the lead lap 1 time apiece. More bizarre is the fact that 5 of them scored that lead lap finish in the only race that they finished during the season. Even more bizarre than that, however, is the fact that Arie Luyendyk and Buddy Lazier, 2 of your race winners from the season, are part of that 5-person club. The other 3 being champion Scott Sharp, Disney World runner-up Tony Stewart, and Indy 500 runner-up Davy Jones. Although it should be noted that Davy Jones is only on there on a technicality since that was his only start from the season, as talked about right at the start, but he still is a part of the club. Buzz Calkins and Richie Hearn were the only 2 drivers not a part of that 5-person group. I've always known that the first Indy Racing League season was an odd one. That's not only common knowledge to those who are into the history of IndyCar, but it's also been brought up several times in other videos here on this channel. But having made this video, going a bit more in-depth, I have an all-new appreciation for the utter strangeness of this season. Going over old racing statistics has always been rather interesting to me, so if you'd like to see more videos like this, please let me know. Quick little mention of this before this video ends, I now have a Ko-Fi page if you'd like to
Oh, that. How Ozempic is making me opinion. What? How 5-ish in cars for kids? Who doesn't love Five-ish? After your own girl's division.
As I covered in my last video, Cars for Kids is basically a front for the religious charity URA. It takes donated cars from mostly unsuspecting vehicle owners and either sells or scraps them to pay for real estate investments, Five-ish, and sometimes summer camps for kids, but only if they're Orthodox Jews. Naturally, this makes the organization a massive conduit for shady deals and lavish spending. URA operates 2 facilities in the Catskills Mountains of New York, collectively referred to as The Zone. These are actually old ski resorts that were bought and converted into summer camps by URA. I said 2 facilities because they are not gender segregated by cabins, but by geography, as the boys' camp is located in Delaware County, New York, and the girls' camp is located 8 miles down the road in Schoharie County. This puts it more than an hour away from the closest airport, and virtually inaccessible by any method other than personal car or chartered bus. And there are plenty of reasons why you wouldn't want to come here. While the Catskills is no doubt beautiful, it is not just these mountains that makes the zone notable. Instead, it is the scandals inside the zone itself that are a justification for looking closer. Where to even start? Probably with safety hazards. See, there comes a certain set of upsides and
religious summer camp. I wonder what could possibly go wrong. I wonder.
downsides when you build a summer camp in an old ski resort. Upsides include
especially out in the middle of nowhere,
housing, extensive facilities, and the potential to commune with a ghost that will help you get your tight 5 down. Downsides include older buildings that are more prone to issues, untrained counselors that can mishandle equipment, and that ghost is actually just the result of a gas leak by the aforementioned downsides.
Dear Mom and Dad, I've been at a sleepaway camp for almost 3 weeks, and I'm getting very scared.
Welcome to Sleepaway Camp. Someone is watching you. Someone is waiting for you. Someone wants to scare you to death.
You're so fucking weird.
Sleepaway Camp. You won't be coming home.
In 2021, URA had to evacuate its boys' zone camp because of a carbon monoxide leak in one of its dorm buildings. This wasn't a lapse in protocol that caused the state bureaucracy to seize on a long-awaited opportunity. The gas leak was only reported because the entire dorm building spent one morning in various states of disorientation, including several campers passing out. 53 campers and staff members had to be taken to the hospital after inhaling potentially lethal quantities of carbon monoxide. Schoharie County's Director of Emergency Services said that the campers were still very lucky.
The fuck they got camels?
If it happened in the middle of the night, there could have been a worse outcome.
Camels
I'll
have
let you
young
figure out what that worse outcome would be on your own. Even worse, this wasn't the only near-fatal incident experienced by campers in the zone in the past 5-ish years. In July of 2020, the girls' zone had to be evacuated because of a kitchen fire that burned down the dining hall. This was during the height of the COVID-19 restrictions, where camps like the Zone were fighting tooth and nail to shirk any social distancing orders through technicalities. It was also not the first time URA had faced criticism for not following fire safety codes. This is because it was back in 2014 that the city of Jefferson in Schoharie County, New York, filed a lawsuit against URA for allegedly having multiple fire and building codes violations. Even as COVID restrictions were winding down, the Girls' Zone was not done with negligent fire safety practices. In February of 2020, 3 of the buildings at the Girls' Zone were destroyed in a fire that nearly spread to a 500-gallon propane tank. In case you're curious, here's what a 500-gallon propane tank exploding looks like. Thankfully, this happened during the winter when the kids weren't at the camp, but there's a pattern of neglect at URA's camps that is undeniable. We have no real signs that this is going to change, and the idea of anyone sending their kids to this inferno makes my stomach turn personally. The loophole that was utilized by the zone to remain open during the pandemic involved a reclassification of the summer camps as temporary residences, although if the parent stayed was inconsistent at best. This practice was not limited to the zone, but it seems like they're the ones who have put the most children in danger because of it. According to a report by Schohair Zone residences, although if the parent stayed was inconsistent at best. This practice was not limited to the zone, but it seems like they're the ones who have put the most children in danger because of it. According to a report by
Of course, it was like they went. They were like, "Oh no, we're totally fucking taking it safe. Your kids just fucking tackle and wrestle each other all day. That'll be good. Nobody will get sick from that."
Dr. Amy Gildemeister, busloads of unaccompanied children were being dropped off at the zone in the 2020 summer season. Curiously, the director of communications for the zone, who has the same role at Cars for Kids, Wendy Kirwan, defended the operation by stating that minor staff members went home at the end of the night and that the campers were accompanied by their parents. If you remember how far away from any major population center this is, the story doesn't really add up. A drive from Gilboa, a nearby city in upstate New York, to New York City itself, the closest major metropolitan area, for these counselors who have worked at the zone while following COVID-19 restrictions, many of them would have to spend roughly 1/3 of any given day just shuttling to and from the zone. Most of these kids are not from upstate New York. In fact, many of them are pretty notably from New Jersey, which is even further away. So the idea that this wasn't an overnight camp is pretty laughable at some point. This is where Cars for Kids is sending your money, by the way. These are the titular kids that are being helped by your car donations. It seems like the main way that these children are being helped is by giving them the opportunity to spend their summer in these camps that are
Cars for
constantly filling
Kids.
their buildings with gases and burning everything down because of negligence. I'd argue that a better use of this money for children's welfare would be to just burn it or dump it into the middle of the ocean, because it seems like the way that it's being spent right now is actively endangering children. And that is not why people are donating their money to Cars for Kids. It's not even why Orthodox Jews are supporting this organization in the first place. And humans aren't the only ones suffering at the zone either.
Yay.
The
Yay.
zone is also
Multi-species
home to a variety of
neglected.
different animals. The biggest draw seems to be horses, which feature prominently in promotional material as a draw for the camp. Unfortunately, it seems that these horses are not treated all that well. According to a statement by Rosemary Farm Sanctuary that links to a Facebook post outlining the details, these horses were recovered from the zone. The animals were found starved, exhausted, and branded by
Jesus.
hot irons. It was only when one of the horses died from being overworked that the person leasing the horses to the camp got involved. Ultimately, it was only because of this intervention that the abuse even came to light in the first place. Thankfully, these horses have found a new home with the help of
Easing them to
Rosemary
that?
Farm and Equine Rescue Resource.
What the
But the fact
fuck?
that it took one death of these horses for any investigation to occur is troubling to say the least. It may also be the cause of an abnormally high number of exotic bird sightings around Stamford, New York, where the zone is located. While looking for any anecdotes that might lead me to new stories in the Facebook group Stanford, New York Neighbors, I noticed that a few people seem to have spotted some kind of exotic bird walking around their yards. I'm not saying it's necessarily an escapee of the zone, but given all the information we have on the treatment of animals there, it's not impossible. This is also where I'd like to mention that the zone has uploaded a video to their YouTube channel that shows what appears to be a turkey and a peacock having some kind of disagreement in one of the buildings. It looks like there's a ski ball in the background there, and the video is just titled "Cockfight at the Zone," which, you know, not to be too quippy, but Jesus Christ, I mean, that's not what we want to see on a camp's YouTube account. Exactly 1 week after the dining hall
Hell yeah,
flames,
get your kid in
Ura
a
had a new
cockfight.
holiday related to the girls' zone camp. But before I get into the details of that, I needed to return to an old friend. The Five-ish lore is far more extensive than I previously thought, and it now includes Five-ish corresponding with Barack Obama.
We're under attack with WMDs, weapons of mass depression, and this is only getting worse, and this is getting very serious, and I think the only one who can help is Five-ish.
and way more anti-Indian racism.
Obamacare, Citibank, Delta, Cars for Kids, and Kosher Delight. I understand you may be having an issue. Be quick because we have an overwhelming influx of cranky callers.
Alright, so this is another one of their Schmorg videos. Starting off, we can see that we are somewhere in
That
Iran.
was so bad.
There is a 3D model of what I believe to be Dr. Wily from Mega Man in a helicopter. After Dr. Wily lands, we then see a vaguely Arab-looking man T-posing inside of the spine of his camel before the camera pans just enough to obscure the location of his legs. There's also a character that is with Dr. Wily whose name I don't know if we ever get. He talks in a voice that I can only describe as aggressively nasal.
Who is this guy?
After introducing themselves to each other, the
Shawarma?
presumably Iranian man welcomes them to his secret laboratory. Now, it's not that I suspect Uruk cared about this in the slightest, but I will note that the Iranian scientist is dressed in a traditional thwab and keffiyeh in a way that is reminiscent of Saudi and Gulf state formal wear. Iranian officials, for the most part, wear Western-style suits and occasionally turbans. Obviously, the creators of this cartoon are pretty racist and aren't ashamed of it, but it also just feels so lazy to not even put the effort in to make this guy look like an evil Iranian cleric or something like that. Surely there's plenty of source material to at least make a 3D model that vaguely resembles like an ugly version of the Ayatollah. It's like if you were making a racist political cartoon about
Look, it's the brave Mujahideen.
depicting him wearing a fez. Like, it doesn't really hit hard, and all we can tell is that you're racist. Anyway, would it surprise you that less than 90 seconds in, this cartoon for children is implying that Iran is manufacturing nuclear weapons?
Oh my
We're in the
god.
final stages of developing something that let
It's so fitting that it came out 2 weeks ago. This literally came out like a day ago.
just
What the fuck?
Schmuckleer weapons.
This is especially
What? They're so dumb. Holy crap.
ironic because Israel, the only Middle Eastern country to actually possess nuclear weapons that will indiscriminately bomb your population centers if it thinks you might hypothetically be building one, receives plenty of gap year students whose tuition is paid for by URA.
There's a golden land that's promised to our fathers, where the streets are stoned and we kiss the ground. This is God's country.
The fuck?
We pray for peace and miracles keep falling. They can send their missiles, but we're not scared of nothing.
After some more reminders of why a rogue state in the Middle East that has a nukes
Oh,
must
really?
be quickly sanctioned and invaded, the
Oh,
actual grand plan
really?
is revealed. It's a bomb that makes people all over the world sad and grumpy, which is somewhat elaborated on in a pretty god-awful musical number. I don't even mean god-awful
Why
in
do
the way that a
buttons keep
musical number might be
disappearing?
over the top or at least be annoyingly catchy. It just sucks. It sounds like someone playing Jafar at Disneyland making up a song to buy time as he desperately waits for Jasmine to finish with her smoke break.
Creatures of the world unite. I like to stand up for your grumpy rights. Of course. We're happy when everyone is sad. Wonderful. I'm thrilled your mood is bad.
I also have to say that if you told me to come up with an anti-Semitic
Oh my
conspiracy theory
God,
on the
this
spot,
is
I don't know if I could beat a
terrible.
bomb that makes you need to go to therapy. That's almost worse than Five-ish in terms of blatant anti-Semitism.
But that's crazy. That's all nonsense. That's nothing but a racket for the Jews.
Speaking of which,
What?
Five-ish wakes up in a panic. He's late for shul. When he gets there, he encounters a group of three men who I believe have the same face model as the old man from the movie Up. These old men are complaining about how awful a bunch of things in their lives are, but given the fact that old people love doing that, Five-ish doesn't seem to think much of it. Five-ish then walks around the synagogue and sees his middle school age friends from the last episode in all their PlayStation 2 rendered glory. They walk into a classroom to inquire about why everyone is seemingly so grumpy. After this is a scene showing a human child giving a cupcake to her Five-ish teacher.
Would you feel better if I gave you my cupcake that I bring for a snack? Oh, thank you.
What?
How
didn't know I needed some chocolate now.
Which the teacher loves so much and
What
seemingly
the
brings her to
fuck?
what I can only really describe as the whimpers of someone who is recently starving.
It's not a
and broken up with.
cupcake.
Oh, thank you.
It looks like a piece of like bacon. What the fuck?
Oh, it's delicious. So
We cut to Five-ish in his car with these three boys, where they get the news that everyone in the world is sad and that all the happiness is gone.
The president has declared a state of emergency. Special correspondent Finn Finnegan is on the scene live in New York City, where the epidemic seems to have hit the worst. Finn?
Thank you, John, for that great news. Ooh, what a great story to be covering.
After Five-ish and the boys try to figure out what to do, there's another cut to the offices of Yapchick Consulting, which, given who works there, should be called Yap Dollar Consulting because it's staffed by Five-ishes. One of them, Shlomo Meckel, is taking a call from someone asking what they should do if they run for president, to which he is told, get a motorcade, before taking another call, this time from Barack Obama, who asks him what to do about this attack by a WMD, a weapon of mass depression.
Well, you see, we're under attack with WMDs, weapons of mass depression, and this is only getting worse, and this is getting very serious. And I think the only one who can help
Somebody
is
say like,
Five-ish.
dude, my uncle can do it.
Obama then gets Five-ish's phone number from Meckel and is able to contact him on his private line. The president informs Five-ish that he and his associates are the only ones in the world not
Why do they fucking make him look
and that
like
he needs
that?
him to find a solution.
Oh, is this Mr. Feevish?
There's no Feevish here. My name is Five-ish.
I'm sorry, Mr. Five-ish.
Ooh, what? Mr. President?
Obama then breaks down in tears on the phone with Five-ish.
But you see, we need you, and your country needs you, and the world needs you. It's,
I think this whole sequence might be a parody of the alleged relationship revealed in Jeffrey Epstein's emails, where Obama called Alan Dershowitz for help in what to do with Israel. The difference is that while Obama is still played by himself, the walking anti-Semitic caricature that has relations with young children is now played by Five-ish. Cut to a parking lot in Lakewood, New Jersey, where the theme of Top Gun plays and a trio of fighter jets flies above. My special aviation interest has to point out that the three shots that these jets are in each use a distinctly different model of jet for some reason, versus an F-22, then an F-16, then finally, the general lands his F-35 in the parking lot to talk with Five-ish and his associates. Five-ish insists that they need to get to India as soon as possible, before seemingly ditching the fighters to get on a chartered private jet. Five-ish insists that they need to get to India as soon as possible, before seemingly ditching the fighters to get on a chartered private jet.
Happy as can be, there's good in everything, and that is why we sing. Let's
It's
make
so good. Just fucking shows up.
Lands his F-35 in the parking lot to talk with Five-ish and
He
his
just fucking lands a goddamn like in a fucking shopping center. What the so stupid.
Five-ish insists that they need to get to India as soon as possible, before seemingly ditching the fighters
Where
to get
is
on a
this?
chartered
Holy
private jet.
fuck. This is so stupid. Oh my god.
Let's make everybody happy as can be. It's all in your head now. Even if you're sad, we will blow it away. Forget all your sadness. Happiness is here to stay. Make everybody happy.
Dude, this is so funny. I'm gonna cry.
After getting to
God.
India, they head to the largest call center in the world, so they can spread simcha, Hebrew for happiness, to the whole world by getting telemarketers on board. There's not much to this part. There's a ton of racist jokes that you can see coming from a mile away, and when he's told by the general that his plan won't work, Five-ish immediately folds, meaning the only purpose of going to India was for Five-ish and his associates to say things that are usually muttered under one's breath in a children's cartoon.
May the problem be today, sir?
You see, I was listening to the radio and I heard a commercial that said if I wanted to be happy, I needed a brand new Z-Box. And the new operating system freezes excessively, and it seems it's making me more sad than I should be. Please fix it now.
First, kind sir, I need to ascertain that the system's electrical connection is firmly connected with your local electrical port on the wall of your house.
Five-ish lands in LA, where he tries and fails to get advice from his guitar-playing friend. Fivers then declares that happiness can only come from Hashem, and tells the general to fly to Miami.
Hold on to your yarmulkes and wipe those frowns off your faces. Help doesn't come from traveling to all these exotic places. It comes from Hashem. We need to keep our bitachon. General, take us to Miami. Yes!
Here he meets what I would best describe as a Fivers
So does he just
version
put
of
him in?
Cy
Wait,
Abelman.
is he
Fivers
in a
Abelman tells
jet?
Fivers that to bring happiness back, they need to make a variety of Shabbos foods. What follows is a musical number featuring those foods singing a parody of Do You Like Waffles? Which, listen, if I'm being honest, doesn't look like food that would instantly or even slowly cheer me up.
Do you like kibbeh? Yeah, we like kibbeh. Do you like lahmacun? Yeah, we like lahmacun. Can't wait for Shabbat. Shabbat! Shabbat! Shabbat!
I can't speak for the rest of the world, but it's
Ugh,
not
what the
particularly
hell?
appetizing. Cut to Lakewood, where the villains go to a kosher grocery store. Here, the cashier, after getting sad from the Sadness WMD, opines that
I'm always so happy. I only make $4 an hour? What? That's minimum wage? I want to go home to my mommy in Guatemala. Ooh la la.
Fivers and his entourage then enter the store and come to the conclusion that the only way to feel happiness is through the teachings of the Torah. Dr. Wiley and his roommate overhear this and, like any reasonable person, start figuring out how to get past the security at the MetLife Stadium.
We need to counter plan before our hard work goes kaput. If you could slip me past the security and get me to the podium, I am confident I could promote the virtues of being miserable.
Cut to a spiritual gathering as Dr. Wiley's fellow confirmed bachelor has gotten on stage dressed like a rabbi and is preaching that the Torah teaches us all to be sad. Thankfully, one of the Fivish rabbis, whose name I don't even remember at this point, goes up and rips his fake beard off.
This Rami, that's what he is. He's a Rami. Look! Look, he's a Rami! He's a terrorist then!
Dr. Wiley's gay homosexual lover who he has gay sex with and fucks and kisses and doesn't forget the balls to and taps it on the tongue exclaims that we have to get out of here, and then the scene basically ends.
Happiness is prevailing. Let's go. Can't we just stay for the smorgasbord? I hear they make nasty pastrami. It's to die for.
So that was how Fivish stopped Iran's WMD program. I don't know why Israel
What?
felt the need to get those bunker busters if it was this easy. Maybe Fivish was on island time when they needed him most. It's certainly an interesting story. I didn't think they had that kind of clout to get Obama on for a speaking role, but alas, it is not the most consequential thing Ura gets up to. Now, I want to ask you, what powers a city? Because it depends on a lot of factors. Location, government policies, connection to other cities, and a lot of times it's just plain luck. For the city of Lakewood, New Jersey, it's a combination of all three. The town where the Cars for Kids organization is based has been experiencing explosive growth over the past few decades off this combination. Despite being located in what used to be a small logging town, Lakewood has managed to use its proximity to New York City in a manner that funnels students into its Jewish educational institutions. Beth Merdash Gehovah, BMG, is the second largest yeshiva in the world, and its expansion turned Lakewood into a college town of sorts. But problems arise for a city growing around a college when that college isn't really improving the productive capacity of its graduates. See, no matter how cynical you are about the role of higher education, there is at minimum the conceit that society as a whole values a college degree. BMG does not fit neatly into that system, at least not intentionally. You know how a lot of tech venture capitalists went to Stanford, but they didn't even necessarily study business or computer science even? Or how people like Bill Gates dropped out of Harvard and unfortunately inspired a lot of guys you went to high school with to do the same thing without having the means to get into Harvard in the first place? This is because elite colleges will naturally attract the kinds of people that are willing and able to seek elite roles. And by bringing them together to commingle, they can find what they need before even graduating. Be that potential connections to investors, highly motivated employees on the ground floor, like Peter Thiel, or to develop your woman judging skills, like with Mark Zuckerberg. Think of this process where entrepreneurs find each other in the same terms that you'd think of the accumulation of nourishing DDT into the bloodstream of a majestic bald eagle.
This is called bioaccumulation. When DDT is sprayed on a marsh, its concentration in the water is very low.